The next expert on the list is Amber Brown, BSSWBT, medical social work and case management expert with training in civil and criminal procedures, appellate review, criminology, juvenile delinquency, Maryville University, St. Louis, Missouri, administrative law, Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, experienced in human identification cases in the state of Missouri with Dr. Aaron Oji, and trained in bite mark identification by Dr. Richard Somion, known for his work on the Ted Bundy case.
I don't frequently speak with a microphone, so this is weird. I don't speak with a microphone very often, so this is a little weird for me. But I wanted to come here and testify because I was also a victim of the family court system, and then that was utilized against me to harm my profession in medical social work. So as you can see, I as well am fairly educated, and I went on to work for Novant Health Center in Wilmington, North Carolina. While I was there, I had started my work on the med-surg floor, so you get a various array of different types of cases. I worked in the adult ICU and pediatric ICU, and before I was transferred over to the pediatric ICU, I was told I was taking a position of a medical social worker, and she had suffered abuse from the physicians while she was working over there. So I kind of talked to her a little bit about it. I was a little nervous to go over there. She told me that they used her to make CPS reports, and they thought that that was her only purpose. So working in case management, you're supposed to collaborate together. Social workers are very undervalued in the medical system. We are the ones, not all of us know a significant amount about law, but I would say if it is a real deal social worker, they're not going to purge in a report to violate someone's rights and take their child away. And me, I'm ethical. I know, the ethics that I stand behind. And I knew that whenever I wanted to work with these kids over in the pediatric ICU, they weren't going to be telling me to make false child protective service reports because, well, I went to Johns Hopkins and I know the law. So. What ended up happening was, while I was working, I started to notice that there were specific cases I would not be consulted on. So some of these cases, like whenever I went through and I read, the medical documentation, I was just like, why am I not being consulted on this? And I would go down and I would find out that it was a white child, the family was wealthy, and then sometimes they were related to the physicians or the nurses, or there was some type of a relation in that area. It's kind of I would say a smaller area where everybody kind of knows everybody. And the kids would have some type of relation to the people, and those were children who were on life support for neglect. And so I would consult myself on those cases, and I would go in and I made the reports that needed to be made on those people because they endangered the welfare of a child, and that was so then there were times where I would notice that if a family was lower income or it was an African American family, they would be particularly harmful to them. And in one situation, I went and I spoke with the mother. It was an African American mother, an African American father, and they had a brand new baby. The baby was a couple weeks old, and the baby had a condition. I went in and I looked at my own research. The baby had a condition called, it was a biliary stenosis, I think. And that condition is something where I think it starts to show maybe 10 to 12 days after the baby's born. The baby was only 2 weeks old. So I called over to the pediatrician. I ensured that the mother was, taking the baby to the doctor. She was doing everything she was supposed to be doing, and she did. She did everything she was supposed to be doing. The parents were under a lot of stress. They got into an argument in the room, and a nurse accused the father of punching the mother. I went in and I talked to the mom, And I even talked to the grandpa. He was on the cell phone. They were great people. The grandpa was there caring for her other 2 children. She had everything in line that she needed to be doing. She owned a business. She was doing everything she needed to be doing as a mom. And she told me that he did not punch me. We got into an argument. He did not punch me. We were yelling at each other. Well, anytime they're yelling, I do have to make a report on something like that because you're not supposed to be having altercations around your kids. And I did make that report. But then what happened, maybe I think the day after that, the child abuse pediatrician came in and she read through my notes and she asked me why I didn't make a report on medical neglect. And I was like, why would I make a report on medical neglect? I had literally done everything to make sure that, this was a medical condition. It wasn't some type of neglect, and it was 100% a medical condition. And there was absolutely no neglect. The mom did everything she was supposed to be doing. They told me this physician, she never even did an assessment on this mother. She never went in, never talked to her. I talked to her, and she's telling me she's codependent. I was like, this lady is not codependent. She is not codependent at all, and I don't know how you can say that whenever you haven't spoke to her. So I stated to her, I said, have you testified in front of a court? And she goes, well, yeah, I've been in there 1,000 times. I said, well, do you know what perjury is? Woo! They didn't like that, so my time did not last very long there. But you know what? I will take a firing over somebody losing their child, okay? So,
Amen.
I did what I had to do.
Yes, girl.
Also, I will say my feelings are so strong about that because, like everybody else here knows, I know what happens to those kids. And when I know that children are put in homes with criminals who make them pee in pools of pudding and eat it for food, I'm not sending kids there. Oh my God. So
Damn straight.
yeah.
That's right.
And that is a true case. That case is actually on YouTube. So if Congress wants to view it, they can view that. There's also additional cases on YouTube where there are parents who utilize children for food stamp money, and they will lock the refrigerator, and you will have this overweight foster parent who is eating all of the food, and you'll have starving children. So that really doesn't make sense to me. But
Boo.
so I made sure I just evaluated every single person that I ever work with, and that's what I do now. I do it in my own time. If there is a parent who they have had a child taken because of false medical abuse and neglect, like allegations, I will evaluate the case, and I just was able to reunify my 5th child this past week. She came through actually with Francesca. Francesca told me to work with her. I worked with her, and I got the senator. It was the commissioner involved, and the baby is going to be reunified, and they were not going to reunify the baby. They were going to adopt the baby out, and that brings me to my last point on this. With genetic, a lot of issues come with some of these reports in the pediatric ICU. You get a lot of failure to thrive babies, and those babies require a lot of testing before you can accuse someone of not feeding their child. They don't do that. They will put the families in a room, they will give them a bottle, and they will start watching them to see if they're feeding the baby, but then sometimes if nurses are very nasty, which they can be, they will make false statements stating that the mom is not feeding the baby, and that all gets documented, and that becomes a part of a legal record. So, and then that hurts them for the rest of their life, but I have seen that myself. And so, whenever you have a kid who has a genetic disease, I'm going to talk about Pol-G mitochondrial disease. I have Pol-G, and my children have Pol-G, and I was falsely accused of Munchausen by proxy. So with Pol-G babies, it's about, I think, 84% of those children have difficulty feeding, and 87% of them have liver involvement, 84% have seizures, 84% have neuropathy. They have varying issues that go on, and you're lucky if you get a diagnosis very early on. It took us about 4 years to get a diagnosis for my son. But this is kind of where the issue comes in, is that these providers don't put in referrals to genetic physicians, and a child abuse pediatrician is not an appropriate person if they do not have training in genetics to be giving advice on metabolic disorders or anything, even in relation to what our physician here has talked about. You have to have a specialized education in these things to be really sure that what you're doing is right. But they require multiple specialists, and the parents don't get the justice that they deserve. It's just an automatic, immediate referral to Child Protective Services. These kids are some of the most complex kids who they need to be having urgent care, not delayed care. In the foster care system, Child Protective Services, they are delaying medical care for these kids. And then the other thing that I've seen in the hospital setting is that if you were a parent were to bring your kid into the emergency room and you said, I'm going to go on a cruise, I need you to watch my medically complex kid, they're going to call Child Protective Services on you. I literally had foster parents bringing their children into the pediatric ICU, and they were leaving them there so they could go on cruises, and social services would back them up and support them, and it would create a problem for me in my work, because my job was to get them out of the hospital, and I could not get them out of the hospital whenever social services was encouraging them to utilize the hospital as a hotel room. Wow. It is, and so with all of that, whenever I made my own Child Protective Service report, because I'm a mandated reporter, that information usually gets sent to the hospital. But because I had my own CPS case, whenever I had to call Child Protective Services on my ex-husband, they were sending patient information to my home. So I had to tell my supervisor that this information was coming to me, and I didn't know why. They had a social worker go in and see that I had a case before, and they immediately started trying to terminate me from my position. And for that, and then also not making the false report. But they had probably a page of 12 different allegations against me, and that's kind of where that ended. But overall, I think that is all I really have to say, and I appreciate everybody for coming here, and I hope that we can really make some change in all the different areas where we have some very significant problems. I hope Congress takes this serious, and I hope you support the Family Justice and Accountability Act.